Hello, welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things holistic. I am your host, Cheryl Lee. Today's guest is Dr. Timothy Trader, a naturopathic physician with a PhD in nutrition and a 30-year raw foodist. I sit down today with Dr. Trader to discuss the raw food lifestyle, natural hygiene, spiritual practice, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast. My name is Cheryl Lee, and I am your host. And today I have Dr. Tim Trader. He is a naturopathic physician, a PhD in nutrition, and he has been a raw foodist for over 30 years. It's amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm totally honored.
Yeah, absolutely. This is amazing. So I just thought we'd start out, if you might just introduce yourself, give a little bit of a background as to what led you to be an advocate for the raw food lifestyle and kind of the defining moment for you of when you made that light bulb switch to make the change.
Okay. I started out life having asthma, allergies, and a number of other problems, and I couldn't eat very many foods. I was allergic to practically everything. Some of my biggest memories as a child is visiting the allergist and where we talk about the asthma and stuff, and also visiting hospitals in the middle of an asthma attack.
Wow.
So I have a bit of a push to find out some answers. So by the time I got to the university, I was just looking for answers and had done some studies. I was like a kid in a candy store when I went to college and university. It was just so much learning.
Sure.
And it wasn't the pressure you had in high school. You had to do this, you had to do that. It was like, oh, I can look at this or I can do that. Well, I got called into the counselor's office and they said, did you know that you've pretty much completed pre-med? I went, oh, no. I wasn't trying.
Right.
Well, you haven't said you were having a major. I said, I haven't decided on one. He goes, what about a medical doctor? We can offer you a way to get in there with it costing very little money. And I said, okay, well, let's go for that. Well, long story short, I'm a med school dropout.
Okay.
Didn't get there.
Yep.
I was also very interested in holistic stuff at the time. What started that was I was having problems with kinesiology, and that's muscle movement. And so I took this kinesiology class. Well, it wasn't about kinesiology and exercise and muscle movement. It was about muscle testing.
Okay.
And it was very interesting. And they talked about herbs and stuff and cleanses and this and that. So I started doing that. So when I was in med school, I was the guy carrying around the Newton family juice jar and talking about herbs and asking professors about herbs. And so I got the label of the quack.
Right.
In school. And the pressure was just, so I decided I'm going to go to naturopathy. On the way, I got an herbalist degree and a few other things, and I got through naturopathic school, and I still didn't have answers. I still had allergies. I was still taking an inhaler for my asthma. When I was at the university, one of my professors saw me in the emergency room, and he said, you know, people with your kind of asthma usually don't live past 30.
Wow.
And that was kind of a shock. And well, why am I doing all this for? So after naturopathic school, I said, I got to do more. So let's look at nutrition, because it seems like nutrition is the basis of things.
Sure.
So I went to a university that offered me a great situation where I could study and then go back home. I was studying down in Texas, but I actually had a naturopathic practice in South Dakota.
Okay.
And so I was flying between the two, and do all that stuff. But when I was at the university in Texas, they said, we got this guy who wants us to prove some of the things that you're saying. But what was I saying? I went, why don't we eat more fruits and vegetables? You know, why not? This is where the antioxidants, the nutrients are. You know, this is the great stuff. And they said, well, this guy's been bothering us for quite a while. And that guy was T.C. Fry.
Wow.
And so I called him up, and he said, oh, yeah. He got real interested in me when he found out that I was at the university. So I said, can you give me some more information? He sent me a box. And I read through almost everything, but there was this magazine article. He sent me several magazines and a few books. There's an article where this lady had totally reversed asthma. And I went, whoa, this is it. So I was hooked.
Yeah.
So studied natural hygiene for a while.
Yep.
And so on September 6, 1990, after playing around with it for at least 6 months, I went all raw.
Okay, wow.
And I haven't gone back since. Sure, I've eaten a few cooked meals.
Yep.
And the first 6 years, I probably had 20 cooked meals in that time. I was pretty dedicated because every time I had a cooked meal, I felt lousy.
Yeah.
My body was telling me this didn't work. And so I just, in 96, I was my last cooked meal.
Wow. That's amazing. So I have a background in natural hygiene. I went through the program back in the 90s, actually, like late 90s, the Natural Hygiene Institute. And so I have that background. And I think sometimes it seems to me right now, most people are interested in diet. They want to know what the best diet is for this, that, the other thing. They want to know, how can I cure what ails me through diet? Like, how can I get rid of my dis-ease? Like, and oftentimes it's at the point where sometimes it's too late, not always. But in the natural hygiene, the some of the tenets of natural hygiene, it isn't just, yes, diet is part of that, but it's not all of it. And of course, we need fresh air, we need proper sunshine, we need proper breath, we need exercise, we need, peace, stress-free living, all of these things. So the way that you approach your patients or your clients, how do you kind of intertwine all of those proponents into your practice? Because I'm assuming that you also feel that all of these are equally as important to make the whole. It's not just about changing your diet.
Absolutely. First of all, I don't see people as patients.
Okay.
I don't like hierarchies.
Sure.
People know the best for themselves than anybody else on the planet. So We're health partners. I work with health partners.
Great.
And that's how I work. Wow. So how do we look at a whole?
Yeah, the whole.
We all know that eat more fruits and vegetables, get your exercise, get your sleep. We all know this for health. So why don't we implement it? But I'm going to tell you, the whole is greater than the sum. There, a couple decades ago, there was this really wonderful study that was done on apples. And when they broke down the apple, all the antioxidants that are in the apple, there was more antioxidant happening or creation than what was in the apple itself. So it was more, because of the food itself, there was more there than what was the components. So it's all about all of it. So let's hit a few things one at a time.
Yeah.
Sunshine. Sunshine's more than vitamin D.
Yep.
It replenishes coenzyme Q10. They found that there is a link between not getting sunshine, not vitamin D, not getting sunshine, and multiple sclerosis. Even to the point of mother, when she was pregnant, if she didn't get sunshine, there was a higher chance of the child having MS.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
big. But there's more to sun. One of the new things that are coming out about light is the red spectrum.
Right. Yeah. Red light therapy.
Yeah, red light therapy, near infrared. That's part of the sunshine. It helps heal the skin. As long as you're not burning the skin, there's actually a healing process. I have this textbook. I'm not going to get it down for you or anything.
Okay.
But it's a whole textbook on examining the connection between sunshine and melanoma cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it come to conclusion with? That sunshine is not the cause of melanoma cancer. That's
Totally.
pretty big.
Yep.
But so there's so much about sunshine. But let's get back to vitamin D real quick.
Sure.
42% of adults across the world are deficient in vitamin D. And to me, vitamin D, the RDA of vitamin D of about 30, 31, most people are not quite making that to start with. But when you see things like MS, which I mentioned earlier, or autoimmune diseases, or cancer, they're all showing that you actually need more vitamin D to deal with these things than the prescribed RDA of 30. Yeah. In fact, it looks like at least double, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
But we get out and get into the sun and we think, oh, it's too hot in the middle of the day. Oh, no. We can't go out in the middle of the day, so we're going to do it early. But there's no UVB rays at that time.
Right.
And so we mistake that we're getting our sunshine, but our vitamin D is really bad. So
yeah, and we see this.
There's what?
Well, we see this like showing up in so many people. Their vitamin D levels are, they're so low, and now it's just everyone's just supplementing, but scared to actually go out into the source, which is the sun.
Right. But they did a study way back a while ago with some workers who were out in the sun in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
But they're looking at workers who were going out in the morning and the evening because it was too hot in the middle of the day, and they were all low in vitamin D.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's just so much. There's sunshine is needed for everybody. Sleep. Let's keep going here.
Yeah.
40% of adults are deficient and 70% are insufficient.
Yep.
We know we need sleep, but it seems to be one of the things that we do without. Not getting enough sleep increases the risk for diseases like diabetes, depression. It reduces immune protection, and here's the big thing, reduces longevity.
Yeah.
So we need our sleep, and it's obvious, but it's something that even I have problems making sure I'm getting enough.
Yeah. Well, we're so overstimulated now too, like most people, with social media, and, it's just the society now is just go, 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 and not taking time to just be quiet and breathe. And it affects the sleep. People on their phones up until, 11, 12 o'clock, the blue light coming off of screens. It's crazy.
Blue light is not a bad guy.
Right.
You go out in the sunshine in the morning, the blue light gets in your eyes, and it knocks down the melatonin, raises your energy, does this wonderful thing. But getting blue light just before going to sleep, you plug in your phone, you put it into the wall, you're charging the battery, but you got to check your phone one more time.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it, and then you wonder why it took you an hour to get to sleep.
Right.
After that. There we go. And it's not just the social media and stuff. We are addicted. We're addicted to stimulants in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And people are drinking coffee after dinner.
I know.
And the half-life is several hours.
Yep.
And we wonder why we're not sleeping. And then we drink alcohol to get to sleep.
Yep.
But the alcohol wears off in about 2-3 hours. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, we're snap awake.
Yeah.
What do we do? Because
go back on our phone.
Go back on our phone. Instead of, like you were talking about, breathing, relaxing, and just unwinding at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That brings into something, the relaxation, stress reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. If you're relaxing, you are getting rid of some stress a little bit. You're not letting the cortisol just flare all the time. That's really good. But you're also reducing free radicals. Relaxation, stress reduction has been shown to lower blood pressure, improve digestion. It reduces pain. But I've found people don't know how to relax. It's just my thoughts on it. It's my observation.
I agree with you 100%. People don't know how to relax.
But it's really serious. For me, when I was back in med school, one of the really cool things I got involved in was they had a new class called biofeedback. And then what it was to train psychologists. But I took it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at GSR biofeedback, which is about the stress reduction. It shows how quickly you reduce, but also in EEG and blood pressure reduction and all this stuff. It was fun. I mean, and I didn't learn a whole lot of the measurements and stuff because I was the lab rat. I was the one that went, well, let's go hook up Tim and see what he does. So this is where I learned about meditation. This is where I learned to relax.
Right.
One time they had an EEG on me, the full cap and everything, and wires going everywhere. And it was kind of later in the night, and everybody said, oh, let's go get a cup of coffee we can just see what he did during this time when we come back. And they came back and said, oh, he's asleep. Because I'm going delta waves, the slowest waves. And I said, no, I'm not. And they almost spilled their coffee because they were not expecting me to be. But I learned to relax really, really well. But I don't see people being able to relax. Sometimes it's hard just to get some of the people I work with to daydream. Daydreaming is a great thing to do.
Absolutely.
If you can't relax, but the bottom line is something that you talked about, breathing, the breath. We have a tendency to be shallow breathers, in other words, or upper chest breathers. We need to breathe whole body, whole torso, and it really can make a difference. Anyway, now let's go to the other side. Physical activity. Physical activity improves moods, memory, lowers blood pressure. Also, we have relaxation that lowers blood pressure. Activity lowers blood pressure. Improves heart health, keeps the weight off, strengthens the bones. And we're the only animal, and I consider us animals, we're the only ones that don't move every day. Let's take a look at nature. This is what happens. Even if they're not hungry, animals are moving. They're not just looking for food, but they're playing, they're active. The real studies talk about at least an hour and a half a day for health benefits. Everybody hears today in the news, a half hour, 3 times a week, moderate exercise. That's all you need. That's all you need to keep from having a problem. But if you really want optimal health, you need more.
Right.
There's a study out there showing 80% of adults and adolescents are not getting sufficient exercise. That's not just the couch potatoes.
Yeah.
But if we're not doing that, we're going to suffer. One of my favorite studies is that shows how aerobic exercise does better for serotonin in the brain than the SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, antidepressant medication.
Right.
So it's why are we taking drugs that harm our liver and a few other things that we could be doing with some exercise?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's interesting to me how the tenets of natural hygiene, in this modern day society that we have now, I feel like there's more, like, I feel like 10 years ago, the mainstream, it was like, absolutely wear a 60 sunblock, but just stay out of the sun. Now, I feel like the importance of sunshine is becoming a little bit more mainstream. I feel like with exercise too, we live now in a world where there's all of these biohacking devices, which basically allows you to go and sit on a machine for 2 minutes and tells you that this is going to be the equivalent of 1 hour's worth of a run or a bike or something. And it's perpetuating that, I hate, like, that laziness that we have just through our lifestyle in general, to not get outside, to not get fresh air, to not exercise. And it's just such a detriment, all of these new devices that are coming out now.
Well, it's not just the devices. I think it's how we look at things.
Yeah.
HIIT training, HIIT training,
Right.
talks about, you can do this in just 20 minutes or 15 minutes and be done. Super slow. I liked a lot of the concepts about super slow weight training, but I couldn't do it just 12 minutes a day, 12 minutes one time a week.
Right.
I had to do it all the time. Well, I caused some injuries because of that.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. But we're convinced that we can get the same amount we can cheat, like you said, hacking. But we can cheat things away, and it's like cheating for nutrition. 80% of chronic diseases can be prevented by good nutrition. But instead of doing a diet, we just want to pop a pill. Yeah, let's get the daily all-in-one vitamin pill and we're good to go. But I'm sorry, 92% of the U.S. population is deficient in vitamins.
Right.
Despite the advertising and the taking of synthetic vitamins, we're not doing good. Let's keep going because we got a couple other things going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Comfortable environment. Real quick, really easy. If you are cold, how relaxed are you?
You're not.
If you're insecure, where's your focus? A comfortable environment, the safety, the workings, it helps to promote health. Another thing, positive relationships. Abused people have more health challenges. Absolutely. That tells us everything right there. But supported, encouraged people do better not only in health, but in academic challenges. So having a positive relationship around all your relationships being positive, instead of breaking you down, it's so much better to have it build you up.
Absolutely.
And there's one thing that you didn't mention that I think is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Reducing chemicals.
Sure.
We don't realize this, but we are inundated with chemicals around every piece of life that we deal with. Chemicals reduce the immune response. They cause inflammation. They cause free radicals, oxidative stress. They cause cancer. They overwhelm the liver. They cause DNA mutations. And there are some chemicals called endocrine disruptors, which really mess with your hormones.
Sure.
they found over 200 chemicals in umbilical cords after births. 200 chemicals. And I'm not talking about one or two studies. I'm talking 40 studies
Wow.
have
Yeah.
shown that our children, while they're in the womb,
Mm-hmm.
are being inundated with chemicals. I mean, we have so many problem chemicals. We have forever chemicals, PFAs, PCBs, OCPs, PBDEs, not to
Yeah.
mention other things that are naturally occurring in the environment that can cause problems like lead and mercury.
Right.
You know, we use these things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I personally had lead and mercury poisoning. I was working my way through school
Yeah.
as an assayer, and we used lead and mercury in assaying principles, and
Mm-hmm.
it causes damage. So, but chemicals are a big part of a lot of the diseases that we are seeing today. I'm just going to name one: Parkinson's. Parkinson's, the chemicals get into the brain and disrupt the dopamine functions of the brain
Mm-hmm.
in the basal ganglia and cause problems. It's something that we need to look at seriously. Anyway,
What are some things that are like would be a few easy things that people could do to reduce chemicals? Like some of the easiest things that
the
someone could do.
EPA says the indoor home environment is the most polluted of all. That's our government saying this.
Sure.
Wow. So what do we do to reduce that? Well, you're cleaning chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
Get some that do not have bad chemicals in them. I mean, in our house, we use things like baking soda,
Mm-hmm.
clean laundry cleaning products,
Yep.
and we use hydrogen peroxide. We keep it to a really bare minimum,
Yeah.
and we keep a clean house. Another thing is, for a few years ago, I did some touring, and I stayed at Raw Foodist house
Uh-huh.
while we were lecturing. Wow. I go into somebody who says, "Oh, I'm all raw. I'm doing great." And there's Crest toothpaste and Scope mouthwash
Right.
in the bathroom. Okay, they're doing the best they can. I have no judgment against them. But you want your health good? Try baking soda
Yeah.
on your teeth. Not much, just a little with a good brush. You don't need much more.
Right.
Uh, the hair gels and the hair products and the creams. I have a feeling everybody needs to talk to you about beauty products. uh, that's not really my expertise.
Yeah.
I
But you know
do.
what? There's so much we have choices now. Like it used to be that there wasn't a lot of choices, but there are so I mean, even at just conventional grocery stores, you
Yeah.
can find natural dish soap, natural laundry detergent, natural makeup. You can even get hair dye now that's just made from plant and it's readily available. So it used to be harder to get a hold of, but not now. So there's really no reason not to, you know?
Oh, it's amazing about shampoo. I thought I was getting great, healthy shampoo from the health food store.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't mention brand names or
Sure.
anything.
Yeah.
But now, looking back, it had parabens, it had
Yeah.
all this other stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it was labeled healthy, but it wasn't.
Right.
So I always check your labels. Always check.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. You have to be aware of what you're purchasing and take the time to look at what's in the product.
Yeah.
Just because it says organic and natural doesn't mean that it is.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
So, okay. I probably just spent too much time on that.
No, it's good. I think I mean, we did nutrition and then the other just health obvious. The other one's obvious too, hydration, proper, healthy water, right? Not tap water, and as we're going to get into, eating in such a way that doesn't require you to be drinking, gallons of water a day, that you're eating water-rich food.
The only reason I'm drinking water
Mm-hmm.
in this is I'm not used to doing a whole lot of talking.
Yeah, right. To help your throat. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would start coughing and stuff and
totally. I
so
mean, I have a fresh squeeze. I juiced some oranges this morning, so I've got, for the same reason,
yeah.
same reason. But I think it's people think they need to drink so much water, but yes, hydration for sure, but ultimately we want to be eating a diet that we're not having to drink so much water.
If you just took a look at my diet,
Mm-hmm.
without any added water, I'm getting 3 times the amount of water they recommend for people.
Right. Yeah.
So it just really is not a big deal.
Yeah. So moving on then to the raw food diet, I just thought it was really important to cover the whole. I always like to look at things. This is a holistic podcast, and I like to look at things as a whole, because I feel we just pigeonhole things mostly into diet, honestly. There's a diet for everything. And so I just thought it was really important to talk about, all of the tenets of what makes you a vibrant, healthy being. It's not just diet. It's all of these things we just talked about. So thank you for that. I think that was a great down of what those tenets were.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to talk about the raw food diet and how to implement it in a way for success, because I think a lot of people they're curious about, going down the road of a raw food lifestyle, but they kind of get off in the weeds sometimes by not implementing it properly. And it makes a massive difference into the longevity and the sustainability of the diet itself. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like and why the macronutrients, the percentages, are so important when embarking on this kind of a diet.
My first thing is keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
When we're trying to implement this, we want to enjoy some of the same foods that we had before.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the problems that I see people with is it's so hard to prepare. It takes forever. Well, people are used to throwing a pizza in the microwave and
I know.
it's done.
Yeah.
But to make a pizza at home with raw food, well, you have to get a dehydrator, you have to do this and do that. And you have to make nut cheese and this and keep it simple. And if you just have some fruit or a smoothie, it doesn't take the time. But looking into some of the things, if you get your calories in, you find that a lot of things are really good. But it's not just about calories, it's getting the other nutrients in. Because a lot of my diet and the ones that I see that keep going on and on and on are ones that have fruit and green leafy vegetables. You just have to do that. And some say, well, some of the animals out there don't eat that much green vegetables. They eat fruit. They always pick on the bonobos.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at the studies of bonobos' diet, okay, bonobos hang out in the trees. They're really hard to watch. Sometimes they'll come down for a drink of water, but that's about it. So what's up in the trees? The fruit and the leaves. Was it 51%? No, 49% of their diet is fruit. What makes up the rest of the diet? Leaves. Now, greens don't have a whole lot of calories. Right. But they're really packed with some really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're taking a look at, we need to kind of notice what we're doing. We live in this great age. We can notice what we're doing. We can take a look and see how much protein, fat, and carbohydrate we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Too much protein causes problems. Too little protein can also cause problems. So we need a Goldilocks place.
Right.
High protein causes inflammation, heart disease, kidney, and other organ diseases. It lowers immune function. Now you say, well, don't some athletes do really high protein? Well, they supplement protein and they do a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm not going to say that some bodybuilders are the best healthy people. They look great,
Yeah.
no, but they're not the healthiest people.
Right.
And we see later in life a lot of the top bodybuilders and some of the other top athletes, like football players.
Yep.
They have problems later in life.
Yeah.
So too much protein, one of the big things is the inflammation. Inflammation on a bodybuilder looks great, big muscles.
Right.
It also creates problems in the heart. That inflammation doesn't go good here and not so good here. It's just across the board, not great. So,
and I think a lot of the times too, like whatever, whether it's raw food, just, cooked vegan, keto, paleo, whatever, when you're being driven by aesthetics only, your driving force is just the aesthetics and it doesn't matter, then it just goes into the weeds because you're leaving behind, all of your health markers and exchanging that for, six pack or, whatever it might be.
Or performance.
Yeah. And there's the consequences of that, absolutely.
But the thing is that big muscles don't necessarily create strength.
Right.
You can see so many people who are not doing the high protein, but they can still move things very well. I was at a Gold's Gym in San Jose decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a fly machine.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big guys we're talking the gym that's popular with bodybuilders here.
Sure.
One of the big guys comes rolling over and goes, "Can I break in?" I went, "Absolutely." And he went and looked down at my weights and then looked at me. Looked down at the weights and looked at me. He says, "You're doing the same thing that the big boys are doing." And he shook his head and used the same weights that I did.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that size equals more strength.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's go back to protein.
Yeah, let's go back to protein.
Too little protein can cause edema, fatty liver, loss of muscle mass, stunted growth, and higher risk of bone fractures. So it's about finding balance.
Right.
The pendulum goes from one side to the other. You can have too much protein or too little protein. Let's find the place where health resides.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are what powers you. Processed carbs are addictive and don't necessarily work. They create problems. But we need ATP. ATP is what our body makes to fuel our cells. What is it made out of? Oxygen and carbohydrate. Basically, glycogen. So those two mix, and so you get into some of the high-fat diets,
mm-hmm.
and they say, "Oh, we work just fine on high fat." Well, the truth is that ATP still needs carbohydrate, sugar. So if you're on a high-fat diet, you take a fasting blood sugar, fasting blood glucose, and it's the same as if you weren't, supposedly, if you're eating semi-healthy. If you don't have diabetes, it's the same place. If you're fasting and you haven't had anything but water for a week,
right,
your blood glucose, your fasting blood glucose is the same. It has to be. The body cannot run without it. So I don't care. The body says I need carbohydrate. Now, the body can make sugars from protein.
Mm-hmm.
The body can make sugars from fat. It can also turn sugars into fat.
Right.
For storage.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for energy production, right? It's for storage. But if we take protein, it can't be made into sugars. But protein can be made into sugar, but sugars can't be made into protein.
Right.
Everybody says, "Oh, we need protein." Well, guess what? The body disagrees with you. It needs to be able to do the work it needs to do. So leading that into fat, too much fat causes problems. Too little also does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
High fat, called hyperlipidemia, clogs arteries, causes fatty liver, causes cognitive problems, and insulin resistance. What's insulin resistance? That's when the insulin can't get the cell to open up and take in sugars.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. If the cell can't take in sugar, that means more sugars are floating around. And what does that cause? High blood sugar, high blood glucose. So what we need to do is keep the fat down.
Right.
But if we have too low fat, hypolipidemia, it causes hormones imbalanced. Saturated fat is something that we do need, just not in great amounts, because it's where we create cholesterol from, and cholesterol creates hormones. If we don't have enough, we have problems. We also need our essential fatty acids. They're essential. We do not make them. Your omega-3s and 6s. We do need some.
Right.
But not a whole lot. But the whole thing is finding balance. And I keep saying that because people don't understand that health is about balance.
Right. So in your experience with helping people to implement raw food into their life, you must see a lot of people, especially now, coming to you that have been on, whether it's raw or not, ketogenic, paleo, more of a high fat diet. And what are the consequences that you see in these people mostly of doing that, of having that breakdown like that?
They range so very big. First thing I see is most of the people coming in saying that the diets are not working and they're looking for something else. But when they try to change, they have a problem. Because high fat in the cell keeps from the insulin from triggering the cell to allow the sugars to come in, that they have problems getting any more sugar in. And so to eat one piece of fruit, they get jittery and have problems. Right. And so it's a work. But they do notice that, one of the biggest things is that they didn't lose the weight that they wanted to. Another is fatigue. The big ones are cancer and heart disease. I thought I was protected. I'm sorry. These things don't occur right away, and it takes time. And so these people have a harder road to get back into health. But of course, then you have some of the other ones, the other side of this. I had a guy, when I had an office, walk into my office, and he says, "I don't ever get sick." I said, "Sit down, you're sicker than you know." What did we find? We found both cancer and heart disease in this man.
Wow.
And he was stupefied from it. It blew him away. He said, "I thought I was healthy." And so,
do you find too there's a fear of with these people of then trying to get them to eat fruit because they've been maybe eating the avocados and the nuts and seeds like crazy and not been implementing any fruit?
I find this across the board. I find just yesterday, somebody asked me about restless leg syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, restless leg syndrome. It's about dopamine. It's about the basal ganglia in the brain. The great thing is bananas, those little spots in bananas, do you know what causes those little spots when they ripen up? That's dopamine. Because it wants to give you a dopamine rush. Not really, but
Mm-hmm.
it helps feed that this is a good thing. So when you
Right.
get those spots on your bananas, there's dopamine. So if you eat a good amount of bananas, there's an ability to see some balance with dopamine that you didn't have before. And then you make sure there's plenty of exercise, and you see the restless leg just kind of melt away. This is a very simplistic
Sure.
answer to this, but this lady says, I can't do that. Well, why not? Well, I'm a cancer survivor, and I've been told that sugar feeds
Mm.
cancer. So she wasn't even willing to even try to eat a berry. She didn't want to get off of her animal
Wow.
products. There's not a whole lot you can do there. People make their decisions, and you know what? Their decisions is fine for them, and
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with that. But sometimes, you know that you can turn some things around. But people have lived with restless leg syndrome all their lives, and that's not the worst thing that can happen.
Sure.
But it's across the board. Everybody's scared. Let's talk a little bit about sugar feeding cancer since I started
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, no, I love that.
There's this doctor, I won't mention name,
Mm-hmm.
out of Boston University. He's done some marvelous work on cancer as a metabolic disease.
Mm-hmm.
I really respect a lot of his work. He's the one who found that tumors take in more sugar than other cells. So obviously, sugar feeds cancer.
Right.
I have no problem with that. What I have a problem is if you have a normal blood sugar, then there's not as much available. But if you have a high blood sugar and insulin resistance, this gives more ability to the tumor to take in the sugar because there's more abundance. Now, he promotes a high fat diet, one that produces ketones.
Right.
And so the ketones can fuel things like your brain. But the thing is, like I said earlier, the blood sugar for the people on his diet is the same as mine in a
Right.
healthy range, but he still got the sugar in his diet. It's the people who are insulin resistant, keeping sugar in the bloodstream, keeping it high, and for sure, things like soda pop and sugary drinks,
Mm-hmm.
which go into our system so quickly because they're absorbed through the stomach that our body doesn't even say, oh, we got calories going here. It
Right.
doesn't even register. Those people are not doing any good. Where fruit has fiber, so it's a slow uptake of sugar into the bloodstream via the intestine, right where it should be absorbed. And so they're right that sugar can cause problems, but it's when it's too abundant in the bloodstream.
Right.
So,
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that because I know like in my work as well, there just seems to be this fear around eating fruit, literally a berry. I mean,
yeah,
it's literally one berry is like the worst thing that you could do. And it's really hard to change people's mindset around that once they've made their decision, and like you said, I agree with you. It's not really the job to change it. If they want to, that's one thing, but if they're opposed, then I try not to get involved in that. But it's just interesting how there's this rejection of fruit. And yeah.
we are taught that fruit and candy bars are the same thing,
Yeah, exactly.
and they're not.
So I know there's an argument that's made now, like if you listen to a lot of the mainstream talking about why we shouldn't be eating fruit, a lot of the argument is because people will say, well, back in the day, an apple was like this small and it was very tart, and now we've hybridized our fruit to be so big and it's not natural, and so that's all seems to be always the undertone with a lot of these people that will say, well, it's fruit's just not what it used to be. This fruit is literally like going and having a soda pop. So what would you say to that?
But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go back to fiber.
Yeah.
Just the fiber. That's all we need to talk about. It slows the sugar absorption to where the body can handle it. Now, if you eat some fruit and some fat, I'm thinking an apple with an avocado. I have seen this at raw food events. People love to take their apple and they slice it up and they put a slice of avocado on top.
Right.
Personally, I've never tried it. I don't know if it's good or not.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But I've seen it happen. Now you're introducing fat and sugar.
Yeah.
And that could be a problem.
Yeah.
But if you're doing fruit and greens or just fruit by itself, you see that you don't have a raise in blood sugar after your meal. But you put fat with it, you will have a raise in blood sugar.
Right.
If you're even overweight, severely overweight, the fat running around in your bloodstream can also keep you from keeping your sugar low, your blood sugar low. So there's things to consider here all the time. But as far as we've hybridized, okay, if I had to eat the old apples, I'd probably eat 20 of them.
Right.
Instead of eating 4 or 5 in a meal. What we're doing is we're allowing ourselves to do some other things during the day. If you take a look at monkeys who eat fruit, I'm not just talking about anthropoid apes, but the whole range of monkeys that eat fruit. They're in the trees pretty much all day eating. Sure, they take a simple nap in the day and a few other things, and they play and do their thing, but they're doing a lot of time eating.
Right.
So we've saved ourselves a little bit of time. And don't tell me that people have not had something to do with their food forever and a day. There's an old thing about Native Americans in the East Coast was they would come across an oak with acorns and they would take some acorns up, but they would also put some on the ground and step on them. Why would they do that? Because they wanted more oaks to grow.
Right.
Because they knew this was a food source. We have been working with our food since the beginning of time. And why would it ever stop? I'm not so happy about GMOs.
No, yeah, absolutely.
I don't see this as a natural evolution. I see it as, where you can pollinize one tree with another tree's pollen and it will come up with a different pear, apple, or something. Okay, that's what hybridized does. I mean, sometimes it's putting new branches on a tree from another tree or something.
Right.
We have a tendency to try to improve our environment, but GMOs is not doing that. It's not the answer that they say it is, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And just to kind of round off this discussion, I just wanted to just circle back a little bit to the insulin resistance piece. And I think, once in a while, if you put your avocado with your apple now and then, not a big deal. But every day implementing including super high fat raw food with a high fruit diet, do you feel like you're going to end up in the same place of that, a high fat insulin resistance, even though you're implementing raw food. So you're eating lots of nuts, lots of avocado, but you're also eating a really high fruit diet as well.
It's pretty much about placement.
Mm-hmm.
If you're eating fruit and fat all the time,
yeah,
you're going to end up in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're having fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and a big salad at dinner, even with a little bit of fruit, say some oranges for dessert,
sure.
and some berries for your dressing. You blend some berries for your dressing. I like berry dressings for my salad.
Mm-hmm.
I also put a little bit of seeds with that, a little chia for omega-3s, and a little sunflower seed, but I don't go over 2 ounces. It's just a little bit. It makes things nice and creamy.
Yeah.
And it's really nice and enjoyable. But the acid fruits start to break down the fat.
Right.
And can actually help utilize them. But it's not a high carbohydrate meal. I get my carbohydrates during the day.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of carbohydrate in the greens themselves, but it's about finding something that works instead of something that doesn't.
Perfect. Yeah, just wanted to kind of clear that up because, again, it's just taking the knowledge of what we know about in the ketogenic diet and what that means, and then bringing it over to the raw food world. And, it's still the same really in terms of like, you just don't want to combine high fat, high sugar, and it's worth looking into. Like, I know I've heard you talk about like Cronometer before.
Yeah.
As kind of, if you're not familiar, it's kind of worth your while to maybe plug in what you're eating in a day just to kind of see, just to give you an idea, not to say that you have to track every day, but it might be helpful to know kind of where you're standing.
Doing a food journal is essential.
Yeah.
We have it available.
Yeah.
I don't care if you don't like Cronometer, fine. I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But we have these things available, and we can take a look at how much protein, how much nutrients, how much fat we're getting. Everything is there so that we know, oh, okay, I've been eating mango for a week with a little bit of greens, and I'm not getting very much vitamin E.
Right.
Oh, I need some vitamin E. Okay, great. Now I know I need to go look for that. One of the big things that really clicked in me was I heard a doctor from Mayo Clinic who was talking about weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if you're not journaling your diet, you're in denial. And I find that again and again. I see people in the raw food world, and I've been there, who aren't getting enough nutrients in, whether they're very busy or something. And so they grab an apple for breakfast and they put in 4 bananas for a smoothie and they call it lunch.
Yeah.
And they wonder why in the afternoon they're just dragging.
Sure.
It's because they're not paying attention.
Right.
The diet is great, but if you're not looking at what will work,
right.
One of the things in the old hygienists, they used to say, eat when hungry, drink when thirsty, sleep when tired.
Mm-hmm.
But when we shrink when we come off of the Western diet, we have a Big Mac, and 5 minutes you've eaten your Big Mac. Well, let's compare that to some oranges. The same calorie content, and I'm only looking at calorie because the Big Mac doesn't have a whole lot of nutrients to it compared to the oranges. But we're looking at 8 or 9 oranges,
right,
which takes a whole lot longer to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we've shrunken our stomach with the Western diet, and something with high water content and high fiber content kind of gives us a thing that we get full awfully quick.
Right.
And that's what fruit does. Fruit has high water, high fiber. And so it takes a while sometimes to bring that stomach a little bit bigger so it can handle a little bit more fruit.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I've done a lot of the things. I have not done a high fat diet the way that it's being done in the raw food world. I've done the no overt. I've done the fruit only. I've done all these things, but it always comes back to the whole aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. It always circles back around, So switching gears just a little bit, I wanted to just kind of move into talking a little bit about longevity, aging. I think my audience is, probably maybe not so much, but I'm thinking probably 40 plus. I'm going on 51. I know that you're in your 60s, and I'm interested now in longevity. Longevity is a subject that I'm very interested in now that I would not have cared about when I was in my 20s or 30s, not so much. And so what does longevity mean to you? Right now there's a health span versus a lifespan.
Lifespan, yes.
And to me, lifespan is, well, we can live to 100 years old, but how are we living in those 100 years? Are we suffering in the last 50? Are we, we can't get out of bed? And to me, it's more about, yes, lifespan, but the health span. How can we age and achieve longevity in a healthy way where we're not subject to all of the diseases that most of society is subject to?
When we can meet health span and and lifespan together, now we're talking.
Right.
This is the place. So longevity, yeah. And to me, longevity, because we have people having heart attacks at 35.
Yeah.
And it goes down. How can we keep from going down until one of the people who I got to meet in my life was Jack LaLanne.
Wow.
Really interesting guy. I think it was 96, it might have been 95 that he passed. The day before he was exercising.
Wow.
He was swimming the day before he passed.
Yeah.
That's there we go. This works.
Yeah.
There's so many other people that I could name.
I mean, have you heard of the saying, live long, drop dead?
No, I haven't, but
live long, drop dead. I mean, it's perfect, right?
Or live long and die in your sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
No suffering.
There probably is some.
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be some suffering. Just being a human being, we're going to have suffering, but
okay. But how do we bring that health span? How do we bring health all the way to the end? That's the whole thing. A lot of times, the very fundamental thing is we see that nutrients starts to wane as we get older. And if your body doesn't have the nutrients to run, it's just like your car engine. If it doesn't have the gas to run, it doesn't run. And if you're doing stimulants, it's like putting your foot on the accelerator and leaving it in park. Eventually, you're going to throw a rod out of that engine, or the engine's going to break down. There's situations that we need to look at, and longevity, the science of longevity, it's really mixed.
It is mixed.
But if you don't have the nutrients, you got problems. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Putting poisons in don't help. Don't help at all.
How has aging changed for you over the years, especially being, implementing the raw food diet? How, say, over the last 30 years for you to this present moment, how has just aging in general shown up for you, if at all?
Yeah. Can we go back to to the longevity stuff first?
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I will answer how it's changed for me.
Yeah, for sure.
But take a look at the blue zones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that they actually show that there's a pattern to longevity. The famous Okinawans are no longer living to 100 plus. They're not centurions anymore because they've taken up more of the Western style.
Right.
But we do have some people in the United States that are still doing really well. The Venice, the Loma Linda. Nobody really wants to talk about them. And the ones that live the longest are the ones that tend toward more plant. That's pretty big right there.
Yep.
Plants have such a great thing. I heard just last week, a doctor who is fairly famous, that he said the number one longevity tip, eat more plants. This guy is not necessarily a plant lover, but he knows what works.
Right.
Okay, this guy is paleo keto style. But he says, you want to live longer? More plants. Okay, we got it. Another thing that we talk about is calorie restriction diets for longevity. There's a number of things that they've found really work. Number one, for me, less poison, less toxins. You're not ingesting them, so you don't have to deal with it. But they found that caloric restriction has a lower IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1. It's lower, and we found that people with a higher insulin growth factor 1 have more chance for cancer.
Right.
Okay. Who beats out caloric restriction for IGF-1? People who eat exclusively plants.
Right.
There it is. Done. Another thing they found with caloric restriction is they have a higher DHEA. It's a hormone or a precursor to a lot of other hormones. And what do we find? They're not making more DHEA. They're not ingesting more DHEA, but they're getting rid of it slower. Who gets rid of it slower? People who eat exclusively plants.
Right. Yeah.
One of the big things in the longevity fads is NAD+. But if you take a look at the science, if you get enough niacin, B3, vitamin B3, your cells make NAD+ all by itself.
Right.
So we're really doing a lot, just by eating plants.
Well, even the I guess David Sinclair, I don't know if you know of him, David Sinclair, he's kind of at the forefront of longevity, and he's now 100% plant-based.
Oh, good.
Because of that, because he can't dispute the scientific findings that, as far as longevity goes, you just can't beat that. Yeah. Of course, he adds in the NMN and the resveratrol and metformin and all of these substances on top of that. But from a diet standpoint, he's the leader, and he's saying plant-based.
Good. I haven't listened to him say that, but I like to talk about the science instead of people.
Yeah.
Let's talk about metformin. Metformin is riddled with problems.
Yes.
And what they're trying to create with metformin, do it on a raw plant-based diet or a plant-exclusive diet.
Yes.
You get the same results. It's just without side effects.
Right.
Okay. Just, we're talking about some of the medical stuff. I think that one of the biggest problems that we have in today's society is a medical influence. It destroys longevity. We keep people, you got to come back to your doctor. You got to come back to your doctor. Oh, yeah. Oh, let's see about this. Let's see about that. Oh, we need to get a mammogram for you to see if everything's healthy. I'm sorry. Radiation has never been shown to be healthy.
For sure.
But the medical industry likes to keep people coming back because that's how they make money. So they don't tell you about eating a good diet.
Right.
Doctors are not even informed properly about what works and what doesn't. And they keep us in fear.
Yes.
And we talked about earlier in this that, oh boy, fear creates problems for health.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is the medical industry.
I agree.
On that. Now, what has this done for me? Less poisons, less oxidative damage. There was a theory that was beaten down about longevity, and it's the oxidative damage theory of longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, they brought it back because they went, you know what, we were looking at it the wrong way. And if you have less damage, oxidative stress, your body has a tendency to live longer. They've also found, let's talk about telomeres.
Sure.
Telomeres are the caps, the ends, the shoestring caps of your DNA. And as they get shorter and shorter, your cells say, okay, it's time to stop and go away,
Mm-hmm.
and let younger cells keep going. And the cancer is when the things don't work out that way. But so we do want to keep our telomeres nice and long. A plant exclusive diet has been shown to lengthen, not keep them, lengthen the telomeres.
Oh, wow.
So that's big for me. But how am I showing up? Like I said earlier, I was supposed to be dead at 30.
Right.
I've doubled that. I think I'm doing pretty good. I see seniors my age who are in walkers.
Yeah.
I'm still functional. My exercise program is not a competitive one, but it's about being functionally fit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've got some good strength. I can still run. So, all in all, is everything great? I think so. I did believe in a myth from the raw food uh, society
Mm-hmm.
population that we don't need B12.
Right.
The science, I looked at some of the science, we make our bacteria in our colon make the B12, but I didn't look to see that we can't absorb B12 in the colon.
Right.
So I was doing a routine check that I hadn't done for 20 years, and I came up with a high homocysteine, the highest I had ever seen, the highest other doctors have ever seen.
Wow.
And the basis of that is because I did not have enough B12.
Mm-hmm.
And it has caused some nerve damage, and I have to live with that. But bottom line is I am taking B12 and I'm doing pretty good.
Right.
So is it perfect? We got to take out the myths in whether it be hygiene or raw food. You got to take them out, and we got to live on science.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, science is going to keep going, and we're going to find out new things, and we'll change and correct things that we need to change. But I'm pretty happy with what this diet and
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle has given me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Because I know, I mean, you see it all the time, once you're kind of hit the 60 mark, it's almost like things start to go down. But clearly for you, you're just, you're still exercising. I'm assuming you've got great sleep and, all of these things are still functioning.
I try.
Yeah, of course.
Life happens and you don't always get everything you want. But,
yep, absolutely.
And I always find room to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And that means I just keep getting better.
So do you feel too, I just want to have a little discussion too around the emotional side, because I always like to bring that in. I know it's part of the, the hygiene tenets of emotional poise, but how extremely important it is in this day and age to have a spiritual, emotional health, emotional hygiene is equally as important to me as the dietetics, because without that, I mean, your whole world can absolutely fall apart. How have you found, like, I feel like a lot of people, when they start including more raw foods, oftentimes they'll go into this kind of hyper emotional state. Old triggers might come up, old traumas might come up. Have you found that working with people or within yourself? And what are some things that you do to look after your emotional health?
When you clear out all the blocks,
Mm-hmm.
things come up.
Mm-hmm.
That's really big. So yeah, it happens. It happens a lot. It's surprising how a lot of the things that we do are to block emotion, block the pain. If you're in pain, if you're sick, if you're depressed, how does that help your spiritual nature? Poisons cause irritation. And so the first thing is to get rid of the irritation, to get rid of the blocks. A lot of people that I find have problems. It's because they emotionally eat.
Right. Yeah, they numb out with
They numb
food.
out. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. And when you do, I don't care what diet you see as healthy. If you do a good, healthy diet, you're going to see some of those things kind of disappear that were keeping you eating
Mm-hmm.
for emotions. Because, I'm sorry, if you have a bowl of mango, there's only so much you can eat. And it's not going to block, it's not going to cause the numbing unless you overeat.
Right.
But because of the fiber, the water content, it's really hard. And so they have to deal with that. Personally, meditation is a very big part, or if you want to just call it a relaxation,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big part of keeping me stable. I do other things. The Buddhists, the Taoists, and several ascetic practices around the world don't eat garlic. Why? Because it brings up anger. And if you get angry, then there's the other side to that, the downside. There's sorrow because you didn't want to be angry, and there's imbalance inside of you. So I don't do garlic
Mm-hmm.
for that reason. I'm still looking at the reason why garlic does that. I haven't found it.
Yeah, it's interesting though.
There's a lot of hints towards that, but they always don't pan out. So one of the things I do is not do garlic. But exercise is also very big.
Sure.
Sleep, breathing.
Back to the hygienic principles again.
Okay,
Right.
we're
Yeah.
talking about a
Yeah,
lifelong.
like I mean, it's all that whole, like it always circles back to how important those, for our holistic being, it always comes back around to all those amazing hygienic tenets, that make us, functioning and at peace and happy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
One other thing is don't believe your thoughts. They're not true. They're just thoughts.
Hmm.
If you find yourself judging something or seeing things as wrong, is it true? Judgment is something that I find destroys me.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
find that gratitude dissolves judgment. So you look for the
Absolutely.
best of things and you look at how thankful you can be. That's amazing how it'll get you through.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in times when you're just upset, angry, just to pick one thing to be grateful for and focus on that, it just will dissolve everything.
It does.
Yeah, it
And
really does.
especially if you're looking at that one thing that's giving you a problem. Oh, okay. Well, there's this little thing that goes along with that, and I'm really happy that happened. Oh, I really liked what this happened. And pretty soon it's not so bad.
Right. I just wanted to just add in one thing in regards to the emotional health is that with people and the pain, how I know most people are pain avoiders. We like to avoid pain. And like you said, a lot of people are eating food to numb out their emotions. And I just feel like it's just so important for people to be aware because, of course, you can go to any corner store and grab a bag of Doritos, and it comes back around to like this food addiction and to treat it like an addiction. And if you're withdrawing from alcohol, I mean, you're going to go through some withdrawals, and that's not only going to be physical. There's going to be some massive emotional stuff that comes up. And I always like to tell people that, as they're going along on their journey, to be just aware of these things, that it's normal, it's good, it's great to bring these things up and out, to process them. And the raw food just aids in that. I mean, it just absolutely aids in that. To me, it allows this, you want to be in nature more. You want to disconnect. You organically really want that. And
Right.
so it's just realizing that it is, again, the whole of the emotional, the spiritual, yes, the physical, and our food. It's all important, but just to be aware that these things will come up, but it's good. They're all good things.
That's how you look at it, and that's how it works. If you see it all as bad, then it's not going to work for you.
Right. Exactly. And I feel also too, just with the judgment thing, I think there's a difference between judgment and discernment. To be discerning is to be, okay, maybe I might not choose to keep the company of maybe people who are into a gang or something like that, but I'm still not going to judge them. So there's the
Right.
discernment piece, but not ever being in judgment.
Bless them.
Bless them. Exactly.
That they're doing the best they can.
Right.
I don't care if you're an axe murderer or a rapist or somebody.
Yeah.
They're doing the best they can,
Mm-hmm.
and their path is not mine.
Exactly.
And maybe if I do my path, maybe I can help them with theirs by
Exactly.
example.
Mm. Yeah.
Not
Beautiful.
having to go over there and tell you should be doing this. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, I accept you as you, and I love you no matter what.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's beautiful. Yeah. So just to, I'm going to ask all of my guests one question, and I want to ask this to you, just kind of rounding this podcast. I mean, we've talked about some amazing things, and I'm so grateful that you were able to come on and answer a lot of these questions that I had. So my question is, what is your authentic life print? What is your unique individual expression in the world, would you say?
I just want to help.
Mm-hmm.
If I've helped some people and loved the people, if I've shown compassion, then maybe I've led a good life.
Right.
I think that like the a healthy the healthy diet that I have been doing for 30 years plus has enabled me to do more. And if that means helping a few people get over their pain and their dis-ease,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm doing good. I don't remember the lady's name, but there's a song that says, "When it's all over with," and I'm not quoting,
Sure.
but when it's all over with, how we loved is the only thing that's really remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can be remembered as somebody who was compassionate
Mm.
and loving, then I think I've done good.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. I really want to, I'm just at a point in my life now where I really want to just really get the word out about what it means for holistic health and I love that we kind of talked about all these different tenets, and, it's just so important. And yeah, you were just amazing. And you were like my top guy I wanted to track down and get on my show. So thank you so much for coming on with me.
Well, thank you for having me, giving me
Of
this
course.
opportunity to share.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. It's going to help a lot of people. Like, I just want to, I'm like you. I just want to help people. And if it's one thing that you said today on this podcast where somebody listens and thought, oh, that makes sense to me,
That
it
it
could
was
just
worth it.
change the trajectory of someone's entire life. So yeah, it's amazing. So thank you.
Thank you for giving me all this time to
Oh,
do
I
this
love it. The
too.
more time, the better. I was looking at the clock thinking, oh, I hope I'm not taking up too much of your time.
Now it's my opportunity to share.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And how can people reach you if people want to like have a consultation with you to discuss some of the things that we've talked about today? How would they go about reaching you?
Recoverhealth.info is my
Okay.
website. It is a work in progress.
Okay.
It has a long way to go. I'd love to do over 100 articles to help people with situations, but so far I haven't got very many. When I do, there's ways to get connected with me. There's a
Okay.
place that tells you about being a health partner. Please understand that when the people I usually work with are the ones who things have not worked out for them.
Right.
They have a devastating disease that nobody else has been able to figure out, and I take the time to unravel some things. And you just can't do something like you did with the last person
Right.
with that same disease, because we all act and react differently. So it's not just, oh, you want a consultation? Okay, this is a quickie.
Right.
I look at something that you filled out that you had a heart attack last year, and that you exercise a little bit.
Right.
Okay, great. No, my information that I ask from you is extensive. I also ask for a complete medical workup that all the labs and all the reports and all the things that you've had done, and I go through every little piece, and it takes
Right.
me a lot of time. So I don't just do a quick consult. I do read people's blood tests every once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't do a whole lot of background to,
Okay.
but I do mostly things that take up extensive amount of time for me to go through, and
Right.
then I get to share my findings, and that doesn't come cheap.
Okay.
So
Of course.
there are lots of people like you who can help people who are just going, how to change my diet.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I delve deep into finding out what, if you have a chronic disease, I find out why.
Right.
And it takes a lot of testing, and it takes a lot, and I don't come cheap.
Okay. Well,
Just
that's
so
good
you
to.
know that
Yep.
this is this is the way I work.
Yep. This is good information. And when people, I feel like people are, when they get to that point though, they're, it's their health, it's their life. So a lot of people are happy to pay that and know that the amount of work that goes into trying to, you know, figure out the root of what's going on, not just treating the symptom.
So you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'll link all of that in my show notes as well. So I'll link all of your information down below so people can
Thank
have
you.
your resources right there if they want to get hold of you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Tim. Thank you so much. Have
Thank
a
you.
great, beautiful day.
Always, you do the same.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.